And welcome to the Kojo and Adu-Gyamfi show! Alright, my name is Kojo Adu-Gyamfi, and welcome to the show. So, first for the agenda, we're going to be talking about language and its misunderstandings that lead towards mixed race people in society today. Doing this with me, I'll be having my guest speaker, Miss Chido, an African Australian, come and talk about how misunderstandings can develop through the language portrayed at mixed race people. But before we move on to this topic, I'm going to be talking about politics and necessarily how politics affects the language within journalism. So to begin this talk, let's talk a little bit about politics and journalism. Now, former BBC managerial editor David Bowie stated that journalism and politics have a very interesting and very intimate relationship. As politics, he defines politics as being the relationship between the government and the people. A politician, he defines, is a person who represents the people and makes decisions in favor of the people who elected him. But journalist, who is a journalist? A journalist is that individual or group of individuals that analyze and examine the decisions being made by these politicians. These journalists serve as the voice of the people themselves. So in a way, in a good government, especially that of a democracy, the relationship between a politician and a journalist are very important because a politician speaks the word of the people and the journalist is that word. So now let's look at a situation in which the relationship between the two is a bit shaky. Now, David Bowie goes on to explain that there are multiple different categories in which you can define a journalist. He gives a large spectrum, about 8 different categories. On one side of the spectrum, we have a true journalist, which sounds like your ideal guy or gal. He or she reports the news and tells the story as it's supposed to be given. His main objective for writing and the language he uses is to inform the public so that it can be informed debates and intellectual discussions on the decisions and policies that are being made within politics today. Now, David Bowie is a bit of a pessimistic person. In giving this one definition of a good journalist, he gives 7 other bad journalists that you can see in today's society. With his categories of journalists, we have about 7 other journalists that necessarily report the news in a more negative way. To mention a few, we have the activist, we have a journalist called the hunter, which is specifically pretty bad, and we also have the party member. Now, I'm going to be going through the language used by each of these type of journalists, these 3 specifically, to give you a general idea about how bad the language within journalism can affect your political views. Now let's start off with the activists. Now recently there's been a bit of an issue with a pipeline going through a native area within the Americas. This is the Dakota pipeline, I believe. Now, an activist journalist would necessarily spin this event in a way in which he would tell all the facts needed, but would convey it within the language intonation that would change your opinion on how things are done. So, yeah. So with the activist journalist, we can see that one side of the story is being told. Only the side of the people who are fighting against the administration is the one that's being necessarily implied or explicit. So with this, readers have a narrow view on the whole situation. They might get all the facts surrounding the issue, but the language being used to upraise the people who are fighting against the system can skew your view on the whole situation as a whole. It turns the reader to see the situation as an us versus them situation instead of a problem that needs a solution. Instead of diving into the ways in which both parties can come to a reasonable conclusion, this writer is going to spin the story in a way in which people are ultimately being suppressed and put down by the larger fellow. And in this way, we can see that the language used in this journalistic style is very detrimental to the opinions of the reader. And this is just one aspect of a journalist. We also have a very dangerous type of journalist known as the party member journalist. Now, the party member journalist is very interesting. He necessarily is in favor of his political ideals and will fight in any way to suppress the others. Now, of course, this is obviously very dangerous when you think about it, especially when you have a readership that only listens to this one source of news. So when you think about it, in 1975, Hillary Clinton decided to pick a case in which she was the defendant of a 40-year-old man who was accused of raping a 12-year-old girl. Now, let me give you the facts of this story. During the proceedings, Hillary Clinton became a bit emotional, and so she spoke out of line. Due to this, she was asked to leave the courtroom. Later on in the proceedings, her client took a polygraph, which proved that he was innocent of all the accusations that were led onto him. In an audio recording, it's on record that Hillary Clinton laughs as she discusses the polygraph results and also discusses the fact that she was kicked out of the courtroom. These are the facts of the story by multiple different sources. But now let's look at this same event through the lens of a party member journalist. Now, famous Republican conservative news outlets, the Breitbart News Network, spin the story with a very interesting title. Hillary Clinton laughs at 12-year-old rape victim. Is it true that Hillary Clinton laughed during the proceedings of a court case that involved a 12-year-old rape victim? Yes. Did she laugh specifically at a 12-year-old who could have possibly been raped? No. And for you see, at the end of the court case, the man was proven innocent of all charges. So technically, within the language being used, with most readers who read today, you would presume that this woman had actually been proven to be raped and that Hillary Clinton had gone the extra mile to laugh at her victory during the case. And this can be very damaging to the political view or opinion that people may have for Senator Clinton. If you go on to read the rest of the newspaper, which most people don't do, on average 50% of people ask the first 100 words. You only have a bunch of accusations that necessarily tell the facts of what happened, but do not actually give an accurate description of how they actually occurred, especially in the lineage in which they occurred. So in this, we look at who is a true journalist. And in my opinion, the true journalist is you. The true journalist is the public, the people, who go to multiple different sources, look at different type of journalists, and get the whole story and the events as they come by. Now, before I end off the show tonight, I'm gonna welcome my guest, Chido, as she discusses the misunderstandings that occur through language in mass media towards mixed race people. Let's get to the story. What's up, my nigga?
But, Kojo, what makes me your nigga?
You're my nigga.
But from a visual standpoint, wouldn't a word such as mulatto or half-caste better suit your description?
Sounds pretty complex to me.
Yeah, but nigger and other words that are generally viewed negatively by society are for some reason acceptable when used by certain people in regards to certain people.
Do you mean niggas?
Yes, and the fact that this complication of who or who cannot say the word nigger is taking the forefront when we really should be talking about other words that aren't being used at all. Phrases such as mulatto or half-caste, which are actually the most accurate descriptors for people of black and white mixed heritage, aren't being used. Because these words are associated with the oppression of the masses and are viewed as archaic, we have to use words which are granted to us, such as mixed race, when in reality, mixed doesn't mean anything specific. It means not a single race, which does not apply to mulatto people.
It seems very overcomplicated to me.
Well, the whole idea of the tragic mulatto trope is just being reiterated in modern society now. Because mulatto people aren't being granted the use of the word mulatto, it continues to add to the divide. We really should remove these words from our outdated language and embrace them into the modern age.
So I officially can't call her my nigga again. Well, this has been Kojo Adu-Gyamfi and my guest Chido, and this has been the Kojo Adu-Gyamfi Show!